In the world of DSMs, if you wish to make more power, there's a certain thing that you must do, and it's somewhat a rite of passage. This rite of passage is called a fuel pump rewire. Now, if you wish to make any decent amount of horsepower, you got to do this to your car. Well, today I'm going to show you how to do it, but not only am I going to show you how to do it, I'm going to show you how to do it in a way that is clean, out of the way, and easy to access in case you need to fix something. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Now, why do you even need to rewire your fuel pump? Well, in basic terms, our DSMs came with wiring that was a little too thin to be able to support fuel pumps that required a lot of power to send a lot of fuel. Now, before you do this, you're gonna need a few things. So obviously, we're gonna need some thicker wire. I went with 10 gauge wires. Some go with 8, others 12. It just depends on what your goals are. I just went with 10. That's a good size. You're also going to need some quick disconnects and some ring terminals. You don't necessarily need these, but it makes your life a whole lot easier. You're also going to want an inline fuse holder because that's going to keep stuff from burning and breaking and all sorts of fun stuff. You're also going to want some good crimps and heat shrink tubing. Obviously, if you know how to solder, you're going to want to do that instead because it's better and less likely to fail. But I personally do not have a soldering tool and I don't know how to solder, so I'm gonna deal with these because they seem like they'll work. If it doesn't, well, I guess I'll just have to man up and solder it a little bit. But for the time being, we're just gonna use those. And then you're going to need the piece de resistance. It is the relay. You need to make sure it's a 12 volt, 30 amp relay. And if you're a nerd like me, you're gonna throw in something stupid like, oh, I don't know, a kill switch. So now that you know what we're doing and why we're doing it and what we're using to do it, I'm going to show you how we're going to do it. I came up with this by myself, and well, if it's a terrible process, you can let me know. We'll probably find out eventually, but you got to try things to find out, right? So this wiring project is going to start the same way all wiring projects start, with the battery. So we're going to make a connection to the battery and we're going to feed it through the firewall. Now it's going to come through the firewall just behind this carpet right here. So if you pull this back, you see this wiring cluster right here that goes through the firewall. We're just going to go right next to that, kind of poke a hole for ourselves, and that's where our power is going to come from. So now that we've got our connection to the battery, we're going to want to install our inline fuse. So I'm going to put the fuse right here. So it's going to be hanging right in here, which will do two things. One, it'll be easy to access because it'll be right under here. If you ever need to replace the fuse, you just go up under here and do it. Two, it'll be out of the way. It'll be tucked up under there and you won't be able to see it. So here is where my version of rewiring the fuel pump kind of differs from everyone else's. So the way most people do it is they'll run the wires underneath the carpet, underneath the seat, and they'll go back here and they'll either do two things. They'll either do all the rewiring right here and hide it underneath the rear seats, which obviously won't work here, or they'll do all the rewiring and hide everything underneath here. Now, that's either both messy and hard to reach, or it's just straight up hard to reach, because I don't want to have to unscrew this every time I need to get to the fuel pump rewire that I did. So, what we're going to do is not that. The way we're going to do it is we're going to take the wire and we're going to feed it through the center console. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, it'll be out of the way. Second of all, I want to put my kill switch somewhere in this area. I may hide it on the side, but the kill switch that I'm going to be putting on is going to be in the center console. Now, we're also going to be feeding the wire straight down through here because we're going to put the relay right here. Why right here? Well, so putting the relay here does two things. One, it's out of the way and neat. And two, it's easy to access. From here, we're going to run the wires that we need. I think we're going to put the ground right in here too, right inside the center console. But from here, from the relay, we're going to run all the wires through here underneath the carpet. The wires will be exposed a little bit, but we're going to try to keep them as, incognito as possible. And all the wires are going to go right here, connect, make all the connections they need to make. And everything is going to be out of the way and easy to access, which is ultimately why I'm doing this fuel pump rewire. It's to be able to show you guys how to do it in a way that is out of the way and easy to access. And, I kind of need to do it anyways if I'm going to be throwing an Evo 316G in here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now, before you start working on your car, when you're doing any project, especially when you're doing a project that involves wiring, you want to disconnect the battery. Now, most people do this by hand. And that's totally normal. But that takes a little bit too long for me, so I came up with a way that will disconnect your battery within just a few seconds. Now that the battery's disconnected, not with a machete, mind you, I went ahead and put a terminal ring on this wire. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and feed it through, and then we'll put in the inline fuse. This isn't dangerous at all. We won't connect that just yet. So after thinking about this for a while, I think I'm gonna put the kill switch right there next to the steering wheel, to the left of the steering wheel, to the right of my little brightness switch there. That seems like a good spot, and it's pretty easy to get to. So what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna take off the lower dash piece, drill a hole, install the actual kill switch. Then I just need to find a good ground for the kill switch, and then run the wire back to where the relay is gonna be. I know adding the kill switch, is kind of unnecessary and adds a lot of complication to things, but I wanted to do it, Day 2, boys. So the kill switch is done. I went ahead and gave it the power from the fuse that's over here. Ground is right there. But if you didn't use a kill switch like me, all you gotta do, when you continue the power line from the fuse, to keep it out of the way, all you gotta do is take it and tuck it behind the carpet. And then it's out of the way and easy to access. If you need to get to it, it's right there. So next thing you're gonna wanna do is remove your radio so it makes it a little bit easier to work on. Go ahead and feed the power wire through the side here so it doesn't have to deal with all of this stuff. Feed it underneath the shifter and make it come out right here. So what we're gonna do is we're going to attach one of these quick disconnects to the end of it, and we're going to connect the power cable to the 87 terminal. Terminal 87 right up top there, that is going to be the power input for the relay. If you don't understand relays or fuses or anything like that, I don't either. So I'm just doing what other people have told me to. I even drew like a little diagram which helped me understand it a little bit better. So before you start a project, I don't know if you're as much of like a creative person as I am. Just draw a little diagram of what you want to get done, all the connections, all the, whatever other parts you need to do. It just helps you keep track of everything. So that's my tip for the day. But in terms of like relays and things, just make the connections where I'm making them, and it will work. I hope. So now that the relay has good power, we need to find a good ground for it. I wonder what that little cutout is for. It looks pretty clean, so I think it's from the factory. Maybe they want us to do wiring stuff down here. Once you've established your ground, you're gonna want to connect it to terminal 85. So our relay now has a good source of power and a good ground. So now we're gonna start tearing into the fuel pump wiring harness. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna take that metal cover that covers up the fuel pump. You're gonna wanna take that off, unscrew the 4 screws on all 4 corners, then disconnect the fuel pump from its harness. There's a bit more wiring under here than I expected. I personally thought the front wheel drives had less wiring than the all-wheel drives. Maybe it's because this is a 99, I'm not really sure, but you're gonna wanna disconnect the white connector right here. I went ahead and disconnected the black one just to make things a bit easier. And we're gonna cut away the little wrap around these wires so we can get to them easier. So now there's gonna be 2 wires, a black one and a blue one. Go ahead and cut those because we're gonna be replacing those with some new wiring. Well, hello. We're also going to punch a hole through the rubber cover to give the wires a way to escape. Go ahead and connect a new wire to the old blue wire, which is the old power, new remote. And go ahead and put a quick disconnect on the end. Feed it through the rug behind the passenger seat. The new remote wire
go ahead
and connect it up to the relay. Now we just got to take the connect. So now that you've done the new remote wire and connected it up to the relay, now we just got to take the connector and wire up a new power wiring harness. We're just going to leave that. So I think I'm going to take, just so you guys know, I used one of these grabber tools that shrink tubing and just cover it up to feed wires through things. And yeah, you should probably get one. Not just because you'll drop a bolt somewhere, but because, who knows, maybe you'll need to do some weird wiring stuff. Now, go ahead and feed a second wire through. This is going to connect to the fuel pump's connector to the blue line. This is going to be the new power line for the fuel pump and is going to connect to relay terminal number 30, I think. Yeah, 30 or 51. I've heard they can be different. Now the final step to this process is to take the old ground from the connector that goes to the fuel pump, so the fuel pump's ground, and basically ground it but with the thicker wire. So the connections have been made. All we got to do is take care of this old ground. So what I think I'm gonna do, I put kind of like an empty piece from a 10 gauge wire, and I think I'm just gonna do that. Yeah, that'll work. The relay ground, and it's just fed through the same way all the rest of the wires are, just underneath the carpet here. Now all that's left is to basically put everything back together. But before we do that, let's do a quick rundown of the whole thing. Obviously the power is coming from the battery, but it is feeding through the firewall on the passenger side. It's right behind here. Why? Because it's easy to access and out of the way. Next, the power wire is going to come through the center console and meet up with the relay right here. Now the relay is right here for two reasons. It's easy to access and it's out of the way. Right through here, and they come down here and up through here, and right through here. So you can see the wires a little bit, but you won't once we close all this up. This makes it to where it's out of the way, but easy to access. Guard it completely because my handwriting is sometimes terrible. But in basic terms, now this is the homemade diagram I used. You can take a picture or a screenshot or disregard it completely because my handwriting is sometimes terrible. But in basic terms, the power is going to come from the battery and connect to terminal 87 on the relay. The wiring harness's old power is going to become the new remote and connect to terminal 86 from the relay. That's going to connect to terminal 30/51. And then the old ground from the fuel pump is going to go to its own ground, and the relay is also going to have its own ground that connects to terminal 85. Now, everything that you put in here, the relay, the fuse, the switch, if you decide to put one in, they all need to be 30 amps. And that just ensures that it'll be able to handle the current.
And that is pretty much it for today's video. I showed you guys from step 1 to the very last step of how to rewire the fuel pump in your DSM in a manner that is easy to access, easy to fix, and out of the way. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If there's anything that you'd like to say in terms of what you liked or what you disliked, what you would change, let me know in the comments. But last Saturday, I got my turbo, my injectors, all those things. So there's some good things coming up. We're going to be building this guy to about 350 wheel horsepower or so. So if you want to be along for the ride, go ahead and subscribe. Those of you that are already subscribed, thank you. Thank you for watching this far and coming back. And I'll see you guys next week.